here of condominium units, and they know pretty well the meaning of the concept of condominium. I think this is one area possibly that we can also explore. I think the Department of Foreign Affairs or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in China can start considering expanded notion of condominium, and perhaps this could help resolve the conflict or dispute between the Philippines and China, which General Spirit said we cannot resolve that in 100 years or even 1,000 years. But if we can adopt the condominium concept of our relationship, we can possibly enjoy the fruits of the disputed waters in the South China Sea. So, anyone who would like to ask a question?
I have the privilege
Yes.
of to the mic.
Yes, Mr. You can direct the question to anyone. So please identify yourself and direct your question to any one of our panelists.
Yes, I'm from the 18th Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute. And of course, I've been debating this, discussing this, and we've been writing about this South China Sea dispute in the Philippines for the past 15 years, as Olympic law has mentioned earlier. But I think the bottom line is very simple. If the Americans were not allowed to be asserting its dominance in Philippine politics, we would not have a problem. Because the suggestions for joint development and so on has been there, signed between President Duterte and President Xi Jinping since 2017. Unfortunately, we got interrupted by the new administration in 2022, 2023, and we had this mess. But the mess is now visiting this phone call today. But I wanted to bring this up to particularly Victor Gao, because this offers a bit of a ray of light, a bit of hope, as the Politico American magazine reported, it's reported in the news after the Tianjin summit and the September 3 victory parade of China. U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth announced to the American audience, and it is in this headline of Politico, Pentagon plan prioritizes homeland over China threat. Given your exposure almost every day, I can see on YouTube and discussions, Mr. Victor Gao. What is your sense? What is the chances of this becoming a real strategic direction of the United States? How withdrawing from China threat and from Asia, concentrating on its own land. Unfortunately, on the ground here in the Philippines, we see I have shown to the deep state not conforming to the Trump administration's pronouncement of withdrawing from the conflict with political in China. And we are seeing the biggest arms depot in Asia being built up in Subic, and so on and so forth. The Asian NATO being propagandized, at least in reality, actually being done. What is your sense?
Thank you very much. Allow me to be very quick.
Please.
I know other panelists want to contribute their views. First of all, I was doing live commentary when the victory parade was happening in Beijing. I was doing that in the CCTV headquarters. And my impression, allow me to share this with you, that the victory parade of September the 3rd will be judged by history as a major turning point. Because what China demonstrated will convince everyone who cares to watch this in the world that China now enjoys military superiority above the United States. And the Americans may not agree with it. But when you look at the conventional weapons as well as nuclear weapons, China is not next to the United States. China is actually ahead of the United States. This is very profound, and it will take time to sink in. But that leads to a very important next question. That is whether the United States wants to pick up a war against China. Let me tell you, as I mentioned, inevitability of peace between China and the United States. Does that mean the United States will not kind of challenge China? No, they will continue to challenge China. Do you know through what means? Through using proxies. They want to turn the Philippines into a proxy. They want to push the Philippines to the forefront, to instigate a war between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea, and the United States hides in the background, and it does not suffer any casualty. The casualties will be either the Chinese on the Chinese side or the Filipinos on the Filipino side. That would be very, very dangerous. There is another potential proxy, that is the separatists in Taiwan. The Americans want to push the separatists in Taiwan to the forefront, to instigate a war between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. Now, other than that, I don't think any general or admiral in Washington will really go in that direction of instigating a direct war with China. Because, let me share with you, after the Korean War, it is a consensus in Washington that the United States does not want to fight a ground war with China anymore. They are sickened by the casualties suffered by the Americans on the Korean Peninsula, because they learned the lesson in the Vietnam War, and Philippines was very much involved in the Vietnam War because the Americans used the Philippines as the naval base, as the air base, etc. China said, don't cross parallel 17. Let me tell you, the Americans never crossed above the parallel 17. China drew a line, and the Americans didn't move 1 inch above parallel 17. That was in the 1960s. That was in the 1970s. Now, allow me to share with you. If you watch the aerial battle between the Pakistanis and the Indians, and I know both of them very well, they both talked about Victor Gao as being very influential when I talked with them on Indian TV and on Pakistani TV. Listen, the Indians suffered losses. President Trump said 6 of your planes were shut down, or even 7, and Pakistani didn't suffer any loss. Do you know why? Because Pakistanis now are very advanced vis-a-vis the Indians, because they use all the military equipment either exported by China to Pakistan or jointly produced within China and Pakistan, to such an extent that India is very much disadvantaged. Why? Because the Pakistanis have learned from the Chinese cooperation that they need to integrate what I say, the space, the sky, that is the Air Force, the ground, that is the Army, and the surface water, that is the Navy, and the submarine. 5 dimensions integrated into one seamless fighting dimension, aided and enabled by information technology and AI. So the Pakistanis now can see further than the Indians, and their missile can shoot further than the Indians. The Indians could not see the incoming planes on the Pakistani side, and they could not see any missile coming because they were not as instantaneously integrated. When you watch the parade in Tiananmen Square on September the 3rd, you saw the troops, the soldiers, the generals, and the military trucks, the missiles, etc., one by one. But in real battle, they do not fall in each capacity. They are merged into a fighting machine. Allow me to share with you my true observation. China has the best technology now in the world to integrate all these dimensions together into one seamless fighting chain of command. Now the Americans actually panic because they keep saying they can no longer build naval ships. Their production of shipbuilding is only 1% of China, and they do not have enough rare earth. You know, now many countries talk about their rare earth. Myanmar talks about it. Pakistan talks about they have rare earth. Iran talks about they have rare earth. Turkey says, I have rare earth. But if you really know the truth, to have the rare earth does not solve the problem. You need to extract the rare earth elements from the other minerals which they actually coexist, and then refine them. Now, if China does not, discontinue choking the Americans in the neck, the Americans are running out of rare earth reserves. They will no longer be able to produce their missiles or the phantom planes, etc., the killing machine that they need to, be involved in any war in the world. So I think we are at a crossroad already, and we've already gone beyond the point of no return. That is, the United States has come to the conclusion that it is futile to fight a war with China. And it is actually, they are thinking about using some proxy. Philippines is a proxy, Taiwan is a proxy. What else? Do you think India will be a proxy? Let me share with you my observation. After the Pakistani-Indian terror battle, in minimum it will take 10 years for India to recover. India is a great country. I admire India very much. But I don't think they want to really find themselves in another war, especially aerial war between India and Pakistan, because they now realize they are very much disadvantaged for lack of technology and lack of this integrated command system. That is the reality. I think I'm a realist, I'm a very pragmatic person, and I'm here very honored, and I feel myself very much privileged, and I want to share my truth with you, whatever I really understand. And I do not come to Philippines alone, I travel around the world, really. And I want to say, between China and the Philippines, really, being friends will be the better approach. Let's talk about peace. None of us should wear war on our lips. If you listen to China, China never talks about war. China always talks about peace. And I think it is peace that will be the most important thing. China has tried its best to convince the Americans, talk about peace with me. Don't talk about war with me. Because if you talk about war with me, you will be beaten. You will lose the next war as you lost the war in the Korean War. And that will be probably, the Americans probably very much unacceptable. But let's really embrace peace. That's my fundamental point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor John. I'm reminded of, Secretary Lorenzo, when he was Defense Secretary, and Secretary Sordon, when he was National Security Advisor, and me, the President's Advisor for Northern Luzon. And we all come from the region. We speak the lingua franca of the North, which is Ilocano. And we were discussing about how we can help modernize the armed forces of the Philippines, which Secretary Sordon in his presentation made necessity, indispensability of having really strong military force. And we were hoping that the Philippines would soon develop its own weapons and armaments by not just relying on importing weapons from other countries, from the US, and now from India, from Korea, from Indonesia. And the three of us were thinking of putting up a place which we are going to call the Spatial Economic Zone for the development of weapons and armaments in the Philippines. And I was starting to review the foreign incentive law or the Investment Act, and we are trying to remove all those red lines there. And unfortunately, instead of the Philippines developing its own missile system, we opted to buy Indian-made missiles. It's called Brahmos. And sadly, recently when the president visited India, I don't know what was committed again to be bought by the Philippines. But anyway, thank you for the question, Mr. Herman Chulonga, one of our trustees. Any question from the audience? Anyone? Orion Perez? Yeah. Please give the microphone to Mr. Perez.
大家好，对我们的中国朋友，我就告诉你们欢迎光临。Anyway, So what I'm about to say is not really.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, my name is Orion Perez. Yeah, my name is Orion Perez Dugdug, and I am a constitutional
Sino
reform
nakalagong
advocate, just like my friend Roland Mino and my other friend here, Dito Donato. I wanted to make a comment first before I ask my question. And the first comment I wanted to make was about a Facebook post that a Facebook friend of mine made. He's retired General Romeo Coquis. And he actually commented about how other countries in ASEAN, particularly Malaysia and Vietnam, actually have their own conflicts with China as well. And yet, they were able to set aside whatever conflicts they have and still be able to be friendly with China on areas of trade. And in that sense, they were able to join in, for example, as I think observer status in BRICS and things like that, which would actually really enhance their economy. And quite unfortunately, in our case, in the Philippines, we haven't really been able to do that. We're so one-sided and all that. And because of a lot of whatever conflicts occur, we don't have the finesse of looking at a modus vivendi. It's always kicking and screaming and making a lot of noise and not really trying to engage. And I responded to my friend, General Coquis, thinking, perhaps one of our problems in the Philippines is we are the only country in ASEAN that does not share any land border with any other country at all. We are the only totally isolated archipelago. Everyone else, Malaysia, share borders with Thailand, they share borders on the island of Borneo. Indonesia, they share so many borders with so many other countries, etc., etc. But we in the Philippines, we have none of that. And as a result, we've never had a solid history of having to maintain friendly relations, or at least a modus vivendi with a next door neighbor who you may disagree with, but you will still have to live with because of the border that you have. So I don't know, that might be partly it. This is not to disparage our friends at the DFA, because this is just the reality of our history. We've never had to really deal with an absolutely just right next door type neighbor. So, based on that, my question is really for anyone in the panel. How can we improve this situation internally so that we can approach things with more finesse, so that yes, we may have our so-called territorial disputes or disagreements on certain things, but still be able to forge a positive relationship regarding economic development, trade, so that we can also partake in developments around the world and in the region. Thank you very much.
Yeah, please start.
All right. I would like to give some answers to your question. Please, your brief question to me, right? Actually, as Chinese foreign policy researchers, I want to focus on our neighborhood, and particularly around South China Sea. So in the past 1 year, I traveled around South China Sea. So Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, of course, now in the Philippines. So when I was in the trip to these areas around South China Sea, so that made me a very deep impression. What about in that country, like in Indonesia, I take the high-speed train from Jakarta to Bandung. So all it discuss about some kind of business cooperation with China. It's hot topic for the issue between China and Indonesia. And what about Malaysia? So I was invited to visit Xinjiang city next door to Singapore. So they don't discuss quite about how to build new model in Malaysia with some share some traces of Chinese model, so-called center economic special zone. Right? So the ones who learn or even to try towards the investment from China to build next Shenzhen in Malaysia or China. The one of the Vietnam actually just 2 months ago. So in hot area in Da Nang, in Ho Chi Minh City. So Chinese Vietnamese politicians or even the local governmental officers talk to me regarding how to build their local, economic resilience. Just this year, there's a big, not only economic but also local, political, or administrative reforms inside Vietnam, right? So our Vietnamese say that, well, we should think something more beyond the traditional pattern of so-called open up reform in Vietnam. But they say that, well, we should learn something from Chinese model, so-called governance. Chinese governance, because in the past, Vietnamese always try to set their special model, which is different with Chinese. Okay? Not only focus on the economy, but also focus on their political diversity, right? But now, Vietnamese are aware they should have some kind of concentrate on not only their political reform, but more important than economic. Without economic development, there is no solid foundation for the national resilience. So I think that's even I was here last night that talked some of our Chinese diplomats this morning. So maybe even I was interviewed by Vietnamese Filipino journalists. So they also say to me that now, even though the hotspot is some kind of security issue, it's always on the headline for the discussion or even some newspaper. But regarding the society, inside the society of Philippines, or even the business circle, the concern much more on the economic or trade relation, or even the investment from China or from other ASEAN members. So that means maybe essentially for any nations in this region or East Asia or in Southeast Asia, the economic development is critical concern by the ordinary people, by the society. Without economic development, maybe that is some kind of uncertainty or even individualized phenomenon in the society. So that makes some trouble in the society. Okay? So the reason why somehow in the South Asia or even somehow in some country in Southeast Asia, maybe we know that. Now even inside the Philippines society, there's some kind of uncertainty. Okay? So I think even China, we're aware that we should not focus on about economic development. Otherwise, inside of Chinese society, there's some kind of problem. So I think that's the big choice for their government, for the sector of society, or even for the business, the economic development choice. So I think that's the Chinese experience. Like Mr. Gao talking about Deng Xiaoping in the past 40 years. So China wants to focus on the economy, and then we have the foundation for our national security, safeguard. I think that's in this experience to China and for our Filipino friends, maybe it's try to enhance our economic cooperation or try to share our exchange at a societal level. So my university, I have 3 universities. One, I hold the first chance from my university. Now I already have the second job, which is Railway University of China, which is the university in Beijing. So our university will actually open the door to the scholar foreign policy researcher for exchange view with each other, to try and even to share their national governments, their regional governments, support the local governments in an initiative by the Chinese leader just a few weeks ago, by Chinese President Xi Jinping. And so I think that's the key word here is governance, national governance, regional governance. Of course, the governance around South China Sea is critical for us.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Ambassador Tigao, you want to respond?
Yes, just one point. That analysis is so wrong. Ramos had the capacity to deal with both China, US, Gloria Macapagal did so too. Estrada even did that too. Duterte did that too, to balance China. And so I think that analysis is wrong. The big difference is that when you have presidents who are so much American puppets, that's when things go. And look around the world, Britain doesn't share any landmass with any other country, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, they don't have a gentleman's, I think, convoluted analysis.
So thank you. Any other question? If there's none, can I have this lady here? Yeah, please introduce yourself now.
I think I need to respond somehow. My name is Princess Tomastayaw. I'm the Director for North Asia, Division of the Office of Asian Pacific of the Department of Foreign Affairs. I'll just assume this one. Okay, just to point out, the Philippines will always pursue its own interests based on its own priorities and sovereignty and national interests. That is the primary group. We will always follow that, regardless of who we deal with. Our own national interests will always prevail. Nonetheless, I take off from the point of the former national security advisor. He will always pursue areas where we are interested aligned. So that is, of course, what the gentleman over there mentioned. That is a trade. Maybe Minamsol, despite all the issues that you now see on the television, all these differences that we have on so many security issues, we cooperate with China, and our bilateral relations is very strong. Okay, it encompasses the security issues. Okay, we have trade relations, we have security ties, we have the cultural relations, which is very strong. The ties between our countries, between our peoples remain, regardless of the issues that face between the two countries. Filipino-Chinese relations, people-to-people relations, cultural relations, these are the basis of also Philippine-China relations. So I just want to point that out. Okay, we will always pursue our national interests based on our priorities. We will always engage with China as an equal partner. We will engage with the US. We will engage with each and every ASEAN member countries, including, our neighbors. They're not neighbors, but countries in Europe. We are equal partners, and we will always be guided by the principle of our independent foreign policy based on our national interests. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that comment from the Department of Foreign Affairs. Well, actually, yes. We have to continue our strong cultural exchanges, people-to-people exchanges, and even tourism. And that is actually the primary mission of APCO. We have been doing that for more than 50 years since our organization was founded and registered legally. And the sad part, however, is that very recently we observed that there are more Filipinos going to China now as tourists spending money there in China than Chinese tourists coming into the Philippines. I was in Sichuan and Chongqing just 2 days ago. I arrived in the Philippines. When I traveled from Manila to Chengdu, state flight from through Air China, there were more Filipinos in the plane going to Chengdu. And when I came back yesterday morning, again, there were more Filipinos coming home from China. And then I asked them, what made you travel to China? But we enjoy going to China because it's cheap, the hotels are cheap, the food are delicious, they're very cheap, a lot of cities that you can see. That was a different situation 5 years ago. 5 years ago, there were a lot of flights from Chengdu to Manila, Guangzhou to Manila, Xiamen to Manila, Guangzhou to Manila, Beijing to Manila, full of Chinese tourists who would like to come to the Philippines. Why the sudden shift of thought from China? And they didn't know the reason why. What's the reason? They're afraid. According to the Chinese, Mr. Sambal, can you respond to that, sir? As the president of Chinese Association in Chinese from Savannah.
They're issuing less visas now. Manila campus.
I think
Because the ambassador who told me that.
I think so. That may be what it is. But I think they really are not applying anymore for Chinese, for Filipino visas to come to the Philippines as tourists. Maybe the Chinese, Philippine Chinese Business Association.
I have another question. I'm Samuel Uy from the Chinese Filipino Business Club, Inc. Actually, my observation of what's going around in the country, because we're looking at the South China Sea, but we have to bring ourselves back to the country. My observation is every day we read the newspaper, we listen to the commentators on the radio. They are majority, I would say, they are anti-Chinese. And I'm saddened because I couldn't erase my eyes. It's thinking. Everywhere I go, I don't want to be, I have to experience that racism. I did experience it already. And what's going on here? Now, it's not only me, even our business is affected. Just an example, a week ago, our supplier, 3 of them came over from China. One is good with English, but the other 2, technicians, trainers, they didn't know how to speak English. So one was allowed to come in, but the other 2 were detained. After 2 days, because it's a weekend, so I was trying to ask for some help from friends. The 2 were so scared that they decided to buy ticket and went back home to China. I said, these things are young adults. Somehow now, even the Filipinos, they are affected with what is being planted. These seeds, when we allow them to be planted, a year later, Filipino people, they will feel so bullied. And that sense of fear is growing already in them. Instead of our natural values, the natural values of Filipinos who are loving, kind, friendly, something is changing. What can we do to reverse this kind of wrong seeds that were planted in the young minds and into the minds of our Filipinos?
So I want to respond, Ambassador.
Finish on one point, because you might want to investigate this. 3 months ago, I was told that our embassy in Beijing was issuing 1/3 visas than before. When I talked to the ambassador, a good friend of mine, former journalist, he was blaming some technical thing. Your observance is that there are more Filipinos going to China because our embassy in Manila, in Beijing, isn't issuing enough. You might want to investigate.
Professor.
If I may add a point, if you look at ASEAN now, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore already offer visa exemption to Chinese nationals. So anyone in China just buy a ticket and fly to Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. They do not need a visa. That's number one. Coming to the Philippines is still a little bit inconvenient. But allow me to make one for the Filipino people. When you look at China, let me tell you, how do you look at China? First of all, China now has money. Back 40 years ago, China didn't have money. Any Filipino going to Beijing buying dollar on the table will be treated as a king at that time. Really? Because we thought about Filipinos, especially Chinese Filipinos, have money at that time. But now China does have a lot of money. China can make huge investments. Look at the BRI. China made investments in all the countries. Why shouldn't China make investments? Yeah, in the Philippines. So look at China and say, I want to get Chinese investment, number one. Then, when you want to build up connectivity, highways, railways, etc., China can do that faster, with better quality, and with lower budget. That's number two. Number three is that if you have anything to sell, mango, durian, whatever, seafood, whatever you produce in Philippines, sell to China. China has the largest market, larger than that of the United States, much closer than the US market. So, from whatever angle, look at China and try to get the benefit of engaging with China. The China does not want to say, I won't get all the benefits from the Filipinos. Next month, I will be in Shanghai attending the China International Import Exposition. Import. China is the only country in the world which hosts a big exposition for all the imports from different countries. I want to see Filipino friends go to Shanghai, showcase whatever you can sell to the China market. Make a lot of money out of the China market. Now the other thing is that if the Philippines really wants to build up connectivity of any kind, of all kinds, work with China. And I want to end my remarks by saying the real choice for Philippines is not choosing between China or the United States. The real choice is to make up your mind as to whether the United States is doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and whether China is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. If the United States is doing the right thing, why don't you want to work with the United States? But if the United States is doing the wrong thing, why do you want to work with the United States? Likewise for China, if China is doing the right thing, why don't you want to work with China, benefit from working with China? And if China is doing the wrong thing, of course, you will know what to do with China if China does the wrong thing. So that is the real choice. Don't be forced into a dilemma of picking and choosing between China and the United States. Because China and the United States are now the two largest economies in the world. You want to have benefits from both China and the United States, rather than having one but by excluding the others. That will be a much better policy for the Filipino brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I agree with the just like Secretary Sura, he loves the United States. I love the United States too. My children were all schooled and educated in the United States as well. So, last question before we conclude.
Moderator. Nonetheless, let me just say this. It is, I will start from the definition of national security. National security is a state or condition where the general welfare and the well-being of the people,
Gusto kong ma-experience yun eh.
the government institutions, the territory, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, and the culture, the Philippines are all protected and enhanced. Anything that will not protect or endanger all these aspirations will elicit a response from the Republic. For example, if a problem is on territory, then therefore the response would be about building your own forces to defend that territory.
Para maging part naman tayo ng ano.
What I am saying is, it is the right of any country to take action where its national interest is on the line. Is on the line. I think that's no different from China. It has its right to build up its forces. It has its right to its own kind of diplomacy. Just like any other country. The United States has its own kind of diplomacy, has its own kind of military. All because they have their national interest to protect or enhance. Therefore, if there is a conflict of interest, then you will always expect some disagreements, if not aggression, or some unfriendly actions. Despite of that reality, we must come to realize that no country will be the victor or the winner if it resorts, if it believes that it should live in violence, in the use of violence, or in the conduct of war. What should come primarily the first, as I presented in our instruments of national policy, of national power, is diplomacy. Diplomacy. Number 8 there was development. But I have my thoughts that together with economy and development, there must be a forefront.
Ang zero na siya sa budget na naman.
And so,
sa bagong speaker, palitan.
we are countries, but no country is an island. We must also be sensitive about the interest of the other countries, and each and everyone should be encouraged to be also sensitive of the opposite side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joshua. One last question before we conclude this forum. Yes, the gentleman here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Captain Marley Jose Jr., an ex-seafarer. I sailed around the world for 25 years. I became a captain for 8 years, a shipbuilding supervisor in Korea and China for 5 years. Before I stopped sailing at age 45, I started my own mining and ship management company here in Manila. At the moment, I am the President and CEO of GMM Global Maritime Manila and GMS Global Maritime Ship Management. I really appreciate our panels this afternoon, especially Mr. Gao and of course my very old friend Sir Lambino and of course General Esperon. We are keep on talking about peace and security, and I always believe that we need the development and the diplomacy to have that. But as a seafarer for 25 years and as a captain for 8 years, I always respect that in each country, before anything else, we have to secure our maritime territory. The Philippines is an archipelagic country with 7,600 islands. And believe me, as a captain, I observed that the Philippines do not secure our entire country with our maritime territory. We lack one, maritime buoys. We do not have that. 2, lighthouses. I hope everybody can understand what I'm talking about. I am a seafarer, I am a seaman. Would you believe, for example, that the Philippines, as an archipelagic country with 7,600 islands, we have 22 existing lighthouses. As compared to Taiwan, which is only 36,000 square kilometers, an island just north of us, they have 36 lighthouses. What is a lighthouse? As a seafarer, lighthouse is our protection. Lighthouse is our navigational safety. Lighthouse is our peace and our security as a seafarer. This is our guide. This we do not have in our country. I feel sorry about that. I hope everybody can understand it. Philippines have 300,000 square kilometers as compared to Taiwan, which is 36,000 kilometers only. They have 36 lighthouses to protect them, to protect their country, around their country. And we are, again, I will repeat, we are 7,600 islands. We have 22 lighthouses. 22 to protect our 300,000 kilometer area. Philippines, for our information, is one of the longest with coastal areas. With a coastline, we have a coastline of 36,000 kilometers. 18,000 in the west, 18,000 in the east. How many lighthouses or how many maritime buoys do we have around the Philippines? I feel sorry about it. In the West Philippine Sea, we have 10 maritime buoys to protect the 36,000 long coastline of the Philippines. So what do we have here? Why am I talking right now, or why am I asking this in the future? My question. We are talking about the West Philippine Sea. We are talking about fighting, and then we are talking about diplomacy. We are talking about peace and security. But my question is, do we have the chance to talk about it, to talk about how to secure our own country 15, 40, 30 years ago?
Is that the question, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
My question here is like this. Do we have a chance, of course now with the Philippine-China relations, do we have a chance with our colleagues to help us produce these things to protect our maritime territory? We need lighthouses, we need maritime buoys to protect this. This is our wall to protect our maritime territory. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call President Secretary sir, you remember that in your National Security Advisor, the two of us took some helicopter rides in northern Luzon and went to some islands in northern Luzon, specifically for us to identify areas in northern Luzon where we can set up maritime buoys and lighthouses. How many lighthouses so far have been constructed during your time in these areas that we have visited in northern Luzon?
I remember 7, primarily in our positions in the southern.
Yeah, at least we did try our best to
You said there are 10, 7 of them are in our positions.
Yes.
More.
It's very important. I agree with you. The lighthouses are important structure, and in international law, that is a symbol of legitimate occupancy of your territory. Yes, sir. Please respond to the
Thank you. As I know, 50 years ago, or 40 to 50 years ago, the Philippines has provided a very famous international public schools for the international community related to the handcrafts. I agree with you. Philippines Atlantic states. So during the negotiation of the APOS, Philippines and Indonesia provide the concept and the relative regulation of the Atlantic states and the framework of the provisions. So that is one of the important public goods contribution from the Philippine side. So right now there is a famous term, global maritime governance. From the Atlantic view, from my view, the global maritime governance is based on the internal maritime governance. So that is the experience of China. In the past few years, in the past few decades, China has improved its internal maritime capabilities, including the maritime key infrastructure. So what I said, I won't focus on the sea lights, the house, something like that. I would like to say China can provide much more support to Philippines to improve its maritime governance capability from the internal side. But this is dependent on the good atmosphere, especially political atmosphere, and as well as the political trust. So as I know, in the past few years, China has initiated a few suggestions to make maritime cooperation, including the maritime plastic prevention and the oil prevention in the Marina Bay area. We are still waiting for the positive action of the Philippine side. So that is my opinion. Thank you.
Professor,
Now that you mentioned the seamen from the Philippines, allow me to pay tribute to the excellent seamen from the Philippines. They are the best in the world. They work the hardest, and they are the most courageous seamen. You know, China is a major container ports country in the world. 7 of the largest container ports are in China. I understand all seamen from the Philippines regularly. And sometimes when there is a shipwreck,
Or nalobat.
Nalobat
Umulan.
or
naubusan
Wala
so
siyang
they need to really give
naubusan ng
tribute and salute
Data,
the seafaring
wala
tradition of the
siyang payo.
Philippines and the excellence of the seafarers
Dalawa lang yan.
and seamen in the Philippines.
Mali po.
And whatever China and
Payong,
the
kaya
Philippines
naman
can do, talking about
Kaya
the
naman.
lighthouses,
Doon naman,
I share
Ate
with
Mel,
you, China can build a lighthouse with the cheapest budget, with the best quality, and the best speed you can imagine. Probably the overall cost will be 1/4 of a Japanese built lighthouse, or probably 1/5 of an American built lighthouse. You need so many lighthouses everywhere, almost on every island, etc. So again, you identify what area of potential cooperation between China and the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you. That's conclusion. Thank you again for our guests. The Manila Forum, since its inception in 2021, has always taken great pride in bringing to our audiences, including the big online segment, the major issues of today, and making sense of them through a panel of invited experts and admissions. Today, the Manila Forum continued that tradition. We focus today on a topic that's never far from most everybody's mind. That is how to ensure continuing peace and security in the Asia-Pacific region. And in addition to what Professor Dalton, sustainable development of the area. And there are so many questions that need to be answered. We must not stop looking for answers, even if they are difficult to habay. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. Mabuhay po tayo lahat. Mabuhay po ang Philippines, China. Dinner will be served, and for those who would like to stay. Yeah. Picture tayo. You want to have a picture with us?
Picture mo na. Nandiyon siya yung cellphone niya eh.